Hi, welcome to Galvanize. We got our first guest on set. Heather Roush is a awesome entrepreneur here in town doing some really cool things. Real estate, she's done tech. She's now got a company called IPARK. Tell us about what IPARK is. We're excited to have you on. What is IPARK?
IPARK is a full-service parking management company. We do event parking, garage management, surface parking, as well as we lease properties and take those properties and to market and sell parking. Really
powerful entrepreneur in town here making waves and doing some things that I didn't even know like was a natural evolution from real estate is getting into parking. As I think about it, like people are looking for bigger and bigger assets to invest in. How did you get into parking? How did that happen?
Yeah, like tell us about, like, I'm interested to know when you say parking, like is it parking garages, like how many do you own, like how does that all work?
Sure. So basically, to answer your question, it's anything parking.
Okay.
Whether it's events, we just did an event with Butler University and Shakespeare in the Park. They had an event at a park, and we handled everything parking for them. Ingress, egress, I handled my staff, security.
So it's like all this temporary staffing that happens for it, all the marketing, you collect the money. Is it a revenue share model? Do they pay you to do it? How does it work?
So that particular event was free parking, and so we just handled everything, like I said, parking, but that was just a fee-based event. So we did it for 6 days and...
But did they find you because you had the assets to the places to park, right?
No, they found me based on the event strategy that we do. So I've done it with Newfield also, Newfield Winter of Lights. We did not manage the event. What we did was we laid out the parking for the event. They had a challenge when they were going to do the winter lights. They had no idea how many people needed to staff it. Do we need security? Do we need on-street presence?
Got you. So it's more of a service.
Correct.
You provide. So the facility obviously owns all the parking, but you're going to help them. Hey, how many cars are you expecting to park? How many people are you expect to the event? And then you guys lay out which is the best place to park, and then you bring your team in to help with all the parking.
Correct.
Okay. Yep.
Correct.
How do you compete in that? That seems like that would be, hard to illustrate the difference between us and the other guys, right?
Correct. The high level of service that we promote, we are partners with the company, and it makes it a little easier. This event that I'm speaking of, Shakespeare in the Park, it was the first company and the only company that they spoke to.
Now, when we were talking, Heather, it's kind of an old boy network too, right? So you kind of carved your way into this, right? How did that happen?
That's correct. So actually, I have my commercial real estate license, started managing assets downtown Indianapolis, a commercial building, and it just so happened to have a parking garage component. I was a contract employee based out of a group in New York that owns parking garages all over the country, and I kind of got my niche when I realized, this is weird, but a tenant versus a car parking in a garage is a lot easier to manage, and there's a lot more opportunity. So once the car leaves during the 8 to 5 time, then I realized that there's a strategy that the market was underutilizing, so reselling that parking space after someone leaves.
So it's really capital optimization led to a niche for you to say, hey, you're leaving money on the table. Let me take this over and I'll make you more money off the same asset that you have now. Is that what happened?
That is correct. And when you say take it over, I lease some of the real estate as well. And I'll say, you know what you're making right now, I'll pay you. And let me take it and see what else I could do with it.
Well,
Gotcha.
So that would be different than the revenue split. So,
So when in your entrepreneurial career did you go from, hey, I'm getting paid for time, to I'm here to create results based on, and the time can be a variable based on how well I plan, how smart I am. You know what I'm saying? It's like where I think there's a shift where you go from you're an employee, then you become a business owner, which means you sell time for money and think you're in control of your own schedule, which is a big lie, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you work for a crazy person that beats the hell out of you, right? And doesn't pay you enough. I mean, we've all been there, right? And then you become an entrepreneur. when you cross that line, you start going, hey, my time is worth money, and here's how much money I can make with my time. When did that happen for you?
When Lucas Oil was under construction.
Okay.
So I saw the value. So before I worked for the group based out of New York, managed their asset, and realized that all the surface lots around Lucas Oil could potentially be an additional asset. And so that's when I took that big step forward and started approaching people who owned real estate around Lucas Oil.
Yeah.
And that's when that business model shifted and that leased these properties. So I'm in my 11th year of leasing these assets around Lucas Oil.
So
What kind of houses, like anything, or
Oh,
what?
it's parking.
Just park. Okay.
So yeah, so
Okay.
it's so during business hours, some of these properties that I lease, they run. They're normal business.
Yeah.
And then at 5 o'clock, it's that reselling that capital that I could bring in. So this Saturday, it's the first preseason game for Lucas or for the Colts. And I on my website I sell Colts season parking. So we get that cash up front. It gives us opportunity to leverage and make more investments.
well,
Okay.
so as you've been going through this evolution, you got a staff, you started getting a team, What are some of the breakthroughs that happened for you?
I think that it was pretty awesome to be able to land that contract, first of all, and to be able to maintain that contract, because now keep in mind that one of the largest parking companies in the U.S. is based in Indy, and they want that asset, and so it's a great opportunity for me to say I've been able to hold on to that for 11 years, and so
I mean,
that's
you're beating one of the biggest players in the industry on a lot of fronts, and it's one of the reasons I want to have you on the show. It's one of the things I think is awesome about what you're doing. And so one of the things that we want to talk about, we always talk about on the show, is really three things, right? So what is your strategy to galvanize your mindset to? Because you're in a tough industry. It's commodity based. It's an old boy network. How do you keep the mindset to compete every day and go and win and beat those guys?
So what I like to do is pride myself on the concierge level of service that I provide, not only to my client, that asset owner, but also the customer that is going to the event to work, because everything begins with parking and it ends with parking. If you think about when you come in your day, you park your car and you go to work. If you have a bad experience and you couldn't get into the garage, someone parked in your parking space on the surface lot that you're parking, kind of sets the tone of what your day is going to be. And so we try to make sure that we manage that asset to that concierge level of service. And I feel that our business model is quality and not quantity, and my competition is all about quantity.
So that's the business. But talk to us about Heather.
Okay.
How does Heather, what, you know what I mean? Like, what do you put it in your head? What books do you read? What is your ritual like to stay and galvanize your, right? I mean, I know I'm getting personal,
Yeah.
but we want to know what makes entrepreneurs tick, and we want to know what makes them thrive, and we want to share that with our followers. So what is it that you do that allows you to keep that edge, to keep that competitive edge that you talked about? We know, we see it. We felt it. We talked about some of the differentiation that you do in the business, and I think it's awesome. But what makes Heather really thrive every day, and how do you keep motivated to keep fighting, against that big whale that's in the marketplace that's out there, looking for chip, any kind of chip in the armor.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this probably has a lot to do with it. I am the youngest of 7, 4 older brothers.
Oh, wow.
So I'm super competitive.
Yeah.
So if I fall, I get up again, and that's that opportunity that I get to learn and learn from my mistakes. Or maybe it's not a mistake; it had nothing to do with what I did wrong. It's just that my competition had a better relationship than I had, and so I network. I'm involved in a crew. It's a women's networking group based through commercial real estate, and I've found that that's a great niche and a great network for me to work my business and work new opportunities that maybe someone's not even looking at.
One of the things we talk about is scaffolding, right? Your women's network is your scaffolding. The people that you surround surround yourself with your scaffolding, right? That you're building your business in. So you and I have talked about emotional intelligence and how to work on your EQ. In fact, I had a big fail earlier today in this interview, right? We're all making fun of it. Hopefully they'll edit it out. I'm trying to be PC, which is the worst thing to try to do on social media today. And I'm the exact opposite. But how do you build, teach, and learn EQ for yourself, for your team, for everything? How does that work?
So I have been focusing on emotional intelligence because, again, when I lose a deal and I sit at a table with a group of investors and I really feel like I'm going to win this, and then peeling it back and realizing that they like me as a person, and maybe they don't feel like I'm ready for that opportunity. And so I'm learning that as I read through the different emotional intelligence books. And the other thing is the side that I'm a single mom. I have 3 boys, and so watching their minds grow and how they react to things is different than how I react to things. And so it's teaching me a little bit more about, as they get older and become adults, what makes different people's minds tick.
I mean, being a parent is one of the best things you can do to learn about EQ, right? Right? I've got 2 girls, right, and they're now both teenagers, and my EQ is, if it hasn't gone up 20 points this summer, I don't know what, I'm losing ground.
Right.
But how important is EQ in your business, right? Because then I want to talk. I've got some ideas about this. I would like you guys to comment on.
No, I think Heather hit it on the spot. Like, you're not going to win every deal, and especially in our business, when we spend as much money as we spend on marketing per month. Every appointment is almost like the Super Bowl. Yeah. And so, when we send our team out to meet with these sellers, and they come back without a contract, it's a defeat, and because we know how it's very expensive to do what we do.
Every loss is money down the drain.
Right. And as a business owner, as their leader, I can get all upset with them and be like, well, why didn't you get that job done? Or you can just be like, listen, let's get the next one, and help them walk them through, what could we have done better during that appointment, and just try to get better for the next one. And, that type of management, when I first started out as a business owner, I was very, gritty, just get it done. I don't care what you got to do. And it's just not. When you're dealing in our business and how important the emotional side of things is, and it's even...
Especially if you want to sell them again.
Well, right.
If you want to keep a relationship, it's one thing to get a transaction done. It's another thing to keep a relationship.
Exactly. One of my old bosses said it best. She said, this is back, 15 years ago. She said, don't ever underestimate, how you treat somebody. Yeah. Because that person could end up being your boss someday. Amen.
Right? And it's true.
And it's true. And it's the same thing around the business world.
I've had people that I coached that ended up being into that role, right? I mean, so go ahead, finish your thought.
No, so, I think that the competition is, again, there's a lot of people doing exactly what we do, and the differentiation, how do you separate yourself? Is ultra important.
So there's this theory in SEAL kind of training and development called the AAR, the After Action Review, and I think it's the most important thing to do during a sales appointment. It's like, how did we do? And the problem with salespeople in general, us as even as entrepreneurs, is that we defend what we did because we worked hard to do it. We worked hard to refine our skills, but really understanding, what could have been better, right? What could I have showed up? How would I have listened? Could I have done mirror and matching? One of the things that we do is we break it down into 3 different things. 1 to 10, how did I do as a relationship? Like, do they believe in me? Do they trust me? Am I an expert? 1 to 10, do they understand what the company's value is? Do they believe in it? Do they think we represent what they represent? And then 1 to 10, how do we do on value prop, right? How do we score? And we give ourselves a score. And if they moved, we estimate what's the moving score for the person. And if they didn't move, we didn't hit the score high enough. Sometimes the moving score is too high. it costs too much to get them to move. They're not worth it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, because there are customers that they got to be 10, 10, 10 on everything because they want everything so perfect. They're not worth the time and energy. But then there's always a gap to get better, which I think is EQ, right? It's like, how do we learn? Like, you know, a lot of it is I talk fast and I'm excited about things. But if you meet somebody that talks slower and is more methodic, you're instantly out of rapport with that person, right?
Yeah.
And so that whole mirroring and matching, that can make and break down. I don't know why I don't like them. I just don't trust them. It's just your cadence and your voice. They grew up a different way, right? That goes back to being a big families, right? You know, when you have a big family, you know there's different people you got to talk to different ways, right?
Correct.
And you start to learn that with you can't parent both kids the same way either, right? Would you guys agree?
That's correct.
And I think that's part of what we are on this path as entrepreneurs, as business owners, is it's a constant discovery of self-awareness. Isn't it really? Because the bigger your team gets, the more you have to be aware of how you're affecting that team, right?
Yes.
So how has that affected you as you've learned, as your team's got better? What have you had to learn? You know, wow, I didn't think I had to be conscious of that. Now I do.
Just growing the business organically and, you know, one employee at a time. I did make a large jump in investment 3 months ago and hired somebody who knows the industry better than I. And so the thought process, and you always hear people say
this, yeah.
Hire someone smarter than you. And so I wouldn't necessarily say in every aspect he's smarter, because the part of he knows the industry better, but the new technology that's coming on, so that's the part that has been very interesting for us to kind of find our niche and where we want to be. So
but let's talk about what a triumph of self-awareness that is, because first of all, you have to recognize somebody is better at you than something, which a lot of us who are self-made have a hard time doing, right? Yeah. And then second of all, you have to say what is complementive in resource to me to grow.
Right.
And that takes a tremendous amount of self-awareness. I would argue there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are running $3 to $5 million businesses that never get past that point because they always they have to be the smartest person in the room, right? They need that feeling space. And so, I mean, even though it's not true, they hire below the people that could truly leverage their growth, right? I mean, what about you? What do you think about all this?
For me, I haven't taken that step yet.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I think you know we're getting to that point. You know, if we decide to go into other markets, you know, I can't lead. I can't, you know, be trying to manage other markets and managing this market. And so, you know, so that's on the horizon. And so we work on that, you know, weekly. And so I think that's, for me, it's probably one of the hardest things for me to do is let go of some things that I don't have to do.
Well, and guess what? Sometimes when you let go, here's the other thing a lot of people don't want to hear, is you'll be wrong. You know what I mean? And I've watched entrepreneurs like try to give stuff up and they give it up too fast. They don't trust and verify, and then they think that they've got somebody that's like, sales is a big one for me, right? Because I've seen this happen over and over again. I've dealt with a lot of engineer founders, a lot of techie founders. They grew the business and they never knew why people really bought them. They were just brilliant at this one thing and they were able to sell this thing that was brilliant. And then they go hire their friend that talks the most as their VP of sales, right? And they think that that's going to, well, he's really good friends with everybody, but they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to, you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
And all of a sudden they have got through 18 to 2 years of failure of not really moving the business, and they're so disenchanted by the whole process that they don't want to ever do it again.
Yeah.
And they don't. And so it's like, you know, what's that concept of hire slow, fire fast?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of us, it's like you're not like, hey, especially with salespeople, you only get it right if you're great 3/4 of the time. If you're great, most time you're 50-50.
Right.
So just even understanding that mitigated risk going into the process, which is part of the reason, are you really committed to grow? Right? I mean, we've had that conversation with your boyfriend recently, right? It's like, how big do you really want to be? One of the most important decisions you make is, hey, you can have a really kick-ass lifestyle business.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
maybe just keep it if that's what you want. Or do you want to take over the world? Or do you want to put a dent in the universe? Those are whys in the road. You know, and that I think a lot of people struggle with that. Like they think they're supposed to want more than they are.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about that, because you're dealing with that a little bit.
Absolutely. So in October of 2018, I went to a parking convention in Las Vegas, and just saw all the technology and the excitement in the air of, wow, you know, if I took my company to the next level, this is what I would be exposed to, because I have continued to stay small so I could manage. And so at that convention, I decided that we're going to grow this business. We converted to a WBE for state, city, and now I'm finalizing my WeBank certification on a national platform.
Wow.
And then I made that hire in April, and so that's just when you're speaking of that just resonates with me, because I did take that turn and I decided this is where we're going to go, and just a huge step forward is what I would say that we did.
And you can tell you're aligned to it, right? You know it was the right decision. You know that you need that role. That person is doing a good job, hopefully, but that's where the business needed to go, right? And you needed to go in the business.
Absolutely, because right now I control every component of the company, and so sometimes it makes it hard for me to go and network and make those additional contacts that I need to grow the business. And then realizing what my new hire is good at, definitely he is spot on with operations, and so we're working that niche that does free me up to go and do the networking that I've been wanting to do.
You know, I'm interested to know. You know, I try to ask every successful business owner. You know, you make big investments. Obviously, you made a big investment in your people.
Correct.
Then obviously within the business, your marketing, etc. But you know, obviously there's cash flow that you're making. You know, how do you invest stuff outside of your business? You know, how do you create other forms of passive income for yourself that
Nice segue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a real estate guy, so I'm curious. You know, I'm curious to know from other business owners, are they just pouring it back into their own business, or are they getting diversified?
I'm definitely diversified. That's kind of how I got my niche in the first place. The first house that I bought had a house in the back, and rented that house, then bought another house. So I have about 15 properties that definitely help out with, especially as I grow the business, putting everything back in like you mentioned. So it definitely supplements my income.